Hey Mama, welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, wife, mama of 3, and doctor of the PhD kind. On this podcast, we talk honestly about high achievement, burnout, and what it looks like to lead well across home, work, and self. So if you're an ambitious mother scholar who's quietly exhausted by the pace you've been keeping and starting to realize that survival isn't the same as success, this podcast is for you. Mrs. Mummy PhD began during my own PhD journey as a wife and mama. Today, as a postdoctoral scholarly mama working across 2 leadership roles, this work has evolved. It's no longer just about finishing the PhD well, it's about creating sustainable ways of learning, leading, and living at any stage of your journey without losing yourself in the process. If you are ready to move from survival to restoration, you're in the right place. Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. Hey Mama, welcome back to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. As you know, I am so grateful that you've chosen to spend this time with me today by listening to this podcast. And if you have a moment, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Just a little insert here to let you know that as I've been editing this episode, I've realized how long it is. So it's over an hour, actually just under an hour, I think. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to split this episode into 2 parts. This is part 1 today, and next week's episode is going to be part 2. So make sure you subscribe, because if you don't, you'll miss when next week's episode drops. But this is part 1 on efficient and empty, the real cost of outsourcing. Okay, let's get back to the episode. Today's episode is for the mama who feels like she is outsourcing so much of her life that she doesn't even recognize it anymore. So maybe this resonates with you, right? Maybe you're busy delegating, you're automating, you're hiring help, and nothing is wrong with any of that. But I think the challenge in conversations with scholarly mamas and high achieving mamas, I've observed a theme where these mamas are doing all of this automating, delegating, outsourcing, and still feel burnt out. So this idea that burnout is just a matter of capacity, and if we can just outsource some of our tasks and get help doing our tasks, that's a solution for feeling burnt out. And yet these mamas who are busy automating, delegating, getting outside help for everything, they're still feeling that burnout. Why is that? Like, my curiosity just made me think, why would that be? Why would it be that somebody who's able to get the help that they need for all these tasks and jobs that they need to do, why is it that they're still feeling burnt out? And so if you've been keeping up with all the tasks, but not feeling truly present for anything that really matters, I think this episode is for you. So hopefully by the end of the episode, you will understand why presence cannot be outsourced. Notice I said presence cannot be outsourced. Why delegating everything doesn't create that space that you think it should create, and what you need to protect even when life is piling it on, right? So I'm not anti-outsourcing. I think that there are certain tasks that can be outsourced, and if you have the funds and resources to be able to outsource certain tasks, then that's completely your choice. This isn't about this idea of doing everything yourself, because again, we all know that yes, there is that capacity demand issue, and if capacity consistently fails to meet demand, then you have a recipe for burnout. But this episode is really about what happens when we outsource so much in service of keeping up. So with the intention of trying to keep up and do more, that we lose ourselves in the process. So that's what I'm really speaking to in this episode. And so this, like I said, is for the mama who is outsourcing everything that she possibly can just to survive, just to keep going, just to keep up. She's got cleaning services. She's got virtual assistants. I had a mama ask me the other day, like, why do you not get a VA? Like, she's got virtual assistants. She's got every possible efficiency, productivity hack that you can think of. All the apps, all the devices, all the things to just keep her life together and keep her life on track. And delegating tasks left and right, but still is feeling exhausted and burnt out. But this is also for the mama who has freed up her time on paper, right? But still feels more disconnected than ever. So you have outsourced, you've freed up space, you've freed up capacity, and yet still you feel disconnected from the people you love or the things that used to bring you joy. And it's also for those who are physically present with their kids. But like I said, that kind of mental to-do list is still ticking away in the background, despite outsourcing help everywhere else. So despite being able to get that external help, you're physically present with your family, with your kids, with your spouse, but mentally you're still not able to switch off. It's for those who are keeping it on paper, in theory, on the surface, but inside not feeling that kind of freedom that you would expect from creating that space. And as I mentioned, it's very real to me because I am in the process of creating that additional space and I'm really excited about it, but I'm also very cautious. I still need to make sure that I'm not just creating space for creating space's sake, that I've got a plan for how that space is going to allow me to do things that fulfill me and that recharge my batteries and, that allow me to stay on top of what I want to stay on top of without becoming a space to just dump additional tasks that led me to burnout in the first place. So I think this is really important and really timely, even for me, that we make sure that when we create that space or when we are outsourcing things or delegating things, we're not just creating space for the sake of creating space. So I have been, like I said, watching this pattern with burnt out scholarly mamas, and this is the reason, like I said, why this means so much to me, not just from a personal perspective, but also from the patterns I have observed among burnt out scholarly mamas. The more they outsource, the less present they become. I'm going to say that again. The more that gets outsourced, the less present they become. And I think it's because they think that, if I just delegate this one more thing, I'll finally have space. I'll finally be able to breathe. I'll finally be able to rest. But that space never comes because, again, she was never intentional about it in the first place. Or even if it does come, she doesn't know what to do with that space because they have outsourced the very essence of why this space was created in the first place, and that is presence. So presence unintentionally gets outsourced in this process, and then we wonder why we are still burning out. So I know this. I'm not trying to judge anyone. Like I said, this is not an episode where I'm saying never pay for a service or that we should continually do everything ourselves. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this from a place of observation, from conversations with mamas who are outsourcing their lives away, but still feeling burnt out. And this is from me seeing what happens when we optimize for productivity and efficiency, and presence gets sidelined and potentially outsourced as well. Outsourced out of existence, basically. So if you're wondering why you're doing all the right things that are meant to create that capacity and yet still feel more disconnected, more detached, more confused than before, let's just kind of first normalize the reason why we want to outsource. What leads us as busy, high-achieving, scholarly mamas? What leads us to want to outsource things in the first place? I think, firstly, It's this sense of we're drowning in so many tasks and the to-do lists are piling up and all the things are just starting to take their toll on us and weigh us down because we are so busy being producers of outputs and driving those forward. And that's rewarded. Like the more output, the more productive, that's all rewarded in our professional roles. And yet, on the other side of that, motherhood demands presence. Like our kids are always needing something. They want to spend time with us. They want to do things together. We want to spend time with them. And so we think naturally that the solution is that we will just outsource the other things that we think are keeping us from doing just that. And we go ahead and outsource that. And we think that that would create the opportunity for us to be more present mums. And technically it should, because truly, if you look at what we are actually juggling as high achieving scholarly mamas, the demands of intellectual work, the demands of modern motherhood, especially when you don't have an extended family nearby. Like my husband and I, we don't have our extended family living anywhere near to us. They live in different countries. And so the demands on us, like we are the family, right? We are the family, and the demands on us are so intense that we think, well, something has to give because we can't do it all. And we cannot do it all, right? So something has to give. And that leads us to believe that if we just automate enough, if we just delegate enough tasks, if we just use the right tools, the right hacks, the right strategies, that we'll finally be able to breathe. We'll finally have that kind of breathing space. And also, on top of like that expectation around if we automate, if we delegate, if we use the right productivity tools and these things, on top of that, we are observing what other people might be doing. We're observing, we're comparing ourselves, and we're saying, oh, like everybody's using AI to be more productive at work and to help them automate tasks. And on top of that, there's this kind of culture, growing culture, that we need to be as productive as 10 people in our workplace. I was listening to a podcast recently, and the guest on the podcast was saying that in this modern age of AI, in most people's workplaces, you are expected to do the work, as one person, you're expected to do the work of 10 people. And if you're not able to do the work of 10 people, then you are going to be basically seen as unproductive and your role becomes at risk. Now, I'm not sure how that applies in academic context, because we are by nature doing very intellectual work, and work that cannot be outsourced, work that cannot be just delegated to the next person. Like that work requires us to hone our expertise. I was saying to my husband the other day that, you know, watching the news, I don't watch the news very often, to be honest. It's something that I kind of put to one side since COVID. I was watching the news recently, and I was saying to him, every single time there is a crisis, there's some big thing happening in the world, the people that get called upon to come and share their expertise are academics, are researchers, right? And I was even having a conversation with a colleague recently about how researchers are contacted sometimes to advise on content for television shows and entertainment shows, so that, you know, to some degree, the information that's being shared is coming from a reliable source. And so if we are seeing that researchers and the work that we are doing, the work that we do as researchers, the work that we do as academics, the work that we do as potentially healthcare professionals in our professional roles, our professional expertise, that work is acknowledged, the expertise that we offer is acknowledged, then it means that in our workplaces, we can't be replaced by automated tools. We can't be replaced by delegation necessarily, and we can't always be replaced by these new artificial intelligence machines. And so I think that what we are seeing, though, is a shift in our cultural and professional spaces where everything is about optimizing speed. I actually shared an episode some time ago about all the reasons why consistency matters more than speed. But yet we live in a world where everything needs to be fast, everything needs to be fast tracked. And I think it really misses the nuances of the intellectual work that we do. And so that can't always be outsourced, but yet we feel that pressure that things need to be going faster and working at kind of superhuman speeds. And eventually, if we don't keep up with the times and if we don't keep up with the shifts and the technological advances and all of that, we'll be left behind. And then we may be thinking, like, if I can outsource this, I should, because it will free up time. And at the end of the day, like, we all want time freedom, right? And so if we can pay for someone else to do something, or buy a tool that helps us to work faster, or find ways of optimizing how quickly we can do our task, then that will free up time. And it's a reasonable argument. We also may be thinking that I just need to be more efficient. I can't continue to work at this pace and allow myself to get into this rut of burnout. I need to be more efficient, and so I need to optimize. Or you may be thinking the problem is I am not actually doing enough of that optimization. I need to optimize more things in my life, not just my kind of professional work, but I need to optimize at home, because surely if I'm going to be able to show up more and produce more and do more in my work, then I need to be doing less and less at home. And so I need to optimize for my tasks at home as well. And this makes sense because with the technological advances, there are tools that can help you to do things faster. There are tools that can help you to summarize huge documents. There are tools that can help you to write meeting minutes. There are tools that can allow you to connect with professionals worldwide without having to actually travel there face to face, without having to spend long hours traveling and commuting. More of us are able to work from home. We don't have to spend hours and hours commuting. And it all makes sense. Like, these are things that help us to save time. And I'm a huge fan of reclaiming our time where we can, reclaiming our energy too, but reclaiming our time where we can as well. Maybe you want to save hours of meal prep and meal planning, and so you sign up for a meal delivery service so that you don't need to plan and do grocery shopping and do all that stuff and think about what you're going to have, only to realize the kids don't want that. And then it's just the whole thing. Maybe we're outsourcing our cleaning or ironing or, admin. These are all things that, of course, using these tools, using these hacks, using these strategies will save you time. And you'd be foolish not to save time where you can. But the reality that nobody really talks about, in my opinion, is that it gets to a point where you are outsourcing everything, where you are outsourcing so much of your life that you are actually not really present anywhere. So you're keeping up with the pace of all the things you need to do for work and the productivity and efficiency and producing more, but you're not actually living and not actually enjoying the things of life that are priceless, because you've optimized presence out of your life. And I think the trap is that you think once you automate this task, once you have this delegated, you'll be able to have more time to be present. But then there's always something else to automate. There's always something else to delegate. There's always something else to outsource. And presence keeps being pushed to later. When I meet this deadline, when I finish this thing, when I work on this next project. And so we keep filling that space with more tasks and other things that then we think, oh, that needs to be outsourced. And then that needs to be outsourced. So we just keep going through this cycle of creating space, overfilling that space, creating more space by delegating, overfilling that space with other things, creating more space, delegating that. And then, and the cycle goes on. And we end up not actually doing with that space that we've created what we wanted to do with it in the first place, because we filled it with a lot of other stuff. And I think this really applies to overstretched mother scholars in particular. because we're already managing that invisible load, already kind of code switching between the various hats that we wear and roles that we do, and already feeling super fragmented. And now on top of that, we're adding, am I outsourcing enough? Am I keeping up? Should I outsource more things? Should I delegate more things? And we go through that vicious cycle. And the deepest irony of all of this is that the thing that's causing the burnout, the thing that's leading you to feel overstretched, i.e. being stretched thin, being not fully present anywhere, it only gets worse the more you outsource, because you're not just fragmented across roles now. You're fragmented across all these tools and automations and systems that you need to manage. And I'm not saying that these things are not good. I think these things are brilliant when presence is not also outsourced. Because when you are fragmented in those ways, you are present nowhere, because you have actually subconsciously and without realizing it, delegated presence itself. You keep filling that space with other things. You create space, you fill it again with other things that need to then be outsourced, and the cycle continues. And so this isn't a problem that you need to fix. This isn't your fault. I think that this is where you've been doing what you've been told to do and what you've seen other people do, which is to optimize, automate, and keep up. And so you keep doing that. And examples of this might be, okay, I'm going to change my hours at work so that I've got a day off, which is what I'm doing, right? And then you fill that day with just either work that has overfilled from, the other days, and then that day off doesn't really feel like a day off. Or you take up new commitments that you didn't have before that now fills that space, which means that you now need to delegate and automate something else so you can keep up with this new commitment. And so you've been told to, do more, automate more, create more space, and do more, and just be superwoman and do it all. But what if the solution is not actually about creating more efficiency or doing more things? What if what you really need in that space that you have created is to really be present in the moment of that new space and be able to keep the task that you have already got on your plate, not adding anything more. You are not creating this space to take on more work or more tasks or more things, that you are not creating this space to do more. You are creating the space because you've always needed to do less. That is why you've created this space. And so what happens when you're creating the space, you're filling it, then you need to automate even more, you need to outsource more things, is that you've been trying to automate your way out of burnout. You've been trying to delegate your way out. You've been trying to automate and optimize your way out of burnout. But what ends up happening is that you just become more disconnected. So this episode is really about what cannot be outsourced. When I think about this as a clinician. It's been an area of interest to me as a clinician. I think about this as a mum. I think about this as a wife. And I think about this as myself, as me, that this idea of presence in the moment that I'm in, being fully present, it cannot be outsourced. Relationships cannot be outsourced, right? Your presence with your children, the relationships you're building with them, the connections and the bonds that you're creating with them, it can't be outsourced. Your thinking, right? Your academic voice, the deep work that really matters, that cannot be outsourced. Your expertise, to some degree, people may think, actually, yeah, it can be because, we've got these large language models and AI systems. We've always had access to information. As academics, that's what we do. We build on knowledge. We seek knowledge. We've always had access to that knowledge and be able to contribute to that knowledge, right? And so what makes 2026 any different? We are still learning and teaching and building on that knowledge. Your voice in your scholarship is not replaceable. It can't be delegated. Your personal brand cannot be delegated. Your attention in the moments that really count cannot be outsourced. And if any of you listen to this have ever been in a situation where your child has been unwell or sad about something, you will know that your presence as a mom, your existence as a mom is not replaceable. There's no AI tool that's going to be able to comfort your child when they need a cuddle because they've had a bad day. We recently had my son discover that Alexa can read stories, and we read every night. We've done it with all of our children. And when he realized, this is our youngest son, when he realized that it's not the same. This is not the same. Mommy and I reading together is not the same. Or daddy and I reading together is not the same as Alexa reading to me. Again, it reminds you that can't be replaced. When you think about being a clinician and seeing patients and having that therapeutic relationship and therapeutic alliance, that cannot be replaced. That can't be outsourced. When you think about the lived experience that you have had, that cannot be outsourced. When I think about the journey that I've been on as a mom who's done, 5 degrees, who's done a PhD, with having 2 of her children in the middle of that PhD and fighting tooth and nail to get to the end of that journey, despite how hard it was, and who still managed to finish well, that cannot be replaced or outsourced. And so this trap that we find ourselves in sometimes, that we're drowning, we feel like we're doing too much, it's just got too much on, we need to outsource everything. We need to outsource dinner planning. We hired a cleaner so we can outsource weekends. We hire a virtual assistant so we can outsource admin. We hire or we pay for childcare extensions so that we can cover those gaps. We automate systems within our workplaces that helps us to save time. All helpful, great, all strategic, yes. All designed to create capacity, yes. But here's what happens. You outsource the task, but you don't outsource the mental load of managing it. If you've ever been in a position of leadership, you will know that even though you may outsource a task, even though you may have one member of staff doing a particular task, you are ultimately still responsible for that work. Right? You are still responsible. And so even the act of outsourcing does not completely remove the sense of responsibility. You may free up time, but then you fill it with more tasks. Like I said, you fill it with more commitments, more things, probably extended work, and there are no boundaries, and everything just turns into one hot mess. So you create the space, but you are not present in it. And I think this is the kind of key distinction that we really need to hone in on, which is that outsourcing to create capacity for presence is helpful. Yes. When you decide, okay, I am going to change my hours at work so that I can have space in the week to go and do things that I need to refill my physical, mental, emotional well-being. Yes. Helpful. Outsourcing to just keep up with unsustainable patterns and unsustainable paces, that just deepens the burnout. That's just more expensive burnout, right? So a good example of this is exactly what I spoke about that I'm doing, which is creating space in the week so that I can do things that I want to do things that are, meaningful and fulfilling to me, and are in service of my mental, physical health, then yeah, brilliant. An example of where this could all go wrong is creating that space, making a financial sacrifice to do it as well, by the way, because it is a financial sacrifice. And you create that space, But all you do is just take on more work, take on more tasks. All you've done is just shifted the burnout. So the test really is, does this decision, this effort, this initiative, this change create space for me to be more present? Or does it let me just keep up with a pace that was unsustainable in the first place? So am I outsourcing to additional childcare just so that I could just take on more work? That may be fulfilling for a moment, but the burnout doesn't shift. So what people don't realize is that when you outsource everything, you're also losing the opportunity for connection if you're not intentional about it. Because that mental space that you've created, it just gets filled up with more stuff, more things, more tasks, more commitments, more stuff. The presence that you thought you created by, that you wanted to create, it never actually materializes because you haven't changed the pace. All you have done is just optimized it. But that optimization eventually wears down. And so for me, I think the really powerful reframe here is that outsourcing isn't the issue. The pace is the issue. The continued unsustainable way of working is the issue. The relationship with work is the issue. So if you outsource to maintain a relationship with work that is actually unsustainable, or a pace that's actually unsustainable, you'll just stay burned out. But you'll just be doing it more efficiently. Okay, so as I mentioned at the start of the episode, this episode ended up being quite a lengthy one. And so I've split it into 2 parts, and this has been part 1. And next week I will share part 2. So keep leading yourself gently until we meet again next week. But until then, Mama, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, I want you to know this. You don't need to have it all figured out before you take your next step. This work is all about learning to lead yourself first in ways that honor your capacity, your work, your home, and yourself without burning out in the process. If you'd like to continue the conversation beyond the podcast, you're warmly invited to join Scholarly Mamas The Letter, a quiet monthly newsletter for mother scholars who value purpose beyond titles, presence at home, and peace within. You can sign up at scholarlymamas.com. And if you're feeling stuck, stretched, or just not where you want to be, you can book a free 30-minute call to help you gain clarity and explore what support might look like in this season to get from where you are to where you want to be. You can also connect with me on social media at Mrs. Mummy PhD, where I share reflections on ambition, motherhood, sustainable self-leadership, all the things, for high-achieving mamas like yourself. This, Mama, is the quiet work of scholarly motherhood, and these are our journeys of becoming.